Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of SurrealEstate. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I do love that this episode is actually the aftermath of them dealing with a case, but they still have to deal with the aftermath of it because it's not over. It's actually kind of almost a repeat of the Travis House situation of just like, kind of thinking that things were done when in actuality they weren't. It's a very different circumstances because I believe the circumstances around the Travis house, I think Luke said that it was a Harvey situation. I think that's what that was. I don't think it was a Rhodey situation like this one is. Once again, I love the titling they give for these. But, yeah, initially it's like, right, let's just kind of do the wrap up. Everyone's got to stick around. I was immediately suspicious of Susan because she was the one that was off on her own for a little bit of time before she came back because she wanted to take some work home. But everyone's getting, obviously Phil and Anthony. We find out, like, obviously they were trying to adopt a kid, and Anthony's kind of worried because the people coming to check and see whether they're the right fit, it's coming like tomorrow. So Phil's kind of worried about that, and obviously Anthony's worried about it, so he's kind of freaking out about it. Zoe's got her relationship situation going on. Susan's getting her award tomorrow. Obviously, like, the only thing August has in his life is his cat. It's like, right, it needs to be taken care of. Luke, I guess, just any time with Megan. But they have to shut the whole thing down because it turns out that they didn't quite get rid of the roadie. In particular, and I like that whole thing of like, I love because like Susan's like, wait, could it get through the walls or something like that? And Zoe's like, did you not listen? This thing doesn't actually have an actual physical corporeal form. Like it is kind of more like a virus, but that also makes it like, how do you fight something that doesn't actually have a physical form? Because basically it jumps from person to person and it can be incubating inside of you without you really knowing for how long, because it varies from like person to person to circumstances. So any one of those five could be possessed by the roadie because it's still around, even though August was so sure that he killed it. And I think that's such an interesting thing, like without jumping around a little bit, but it is interesting. Like, I don't think August ever really found out what went wrong, because when we get revealed later on that he's possessed, because I guess like the signs are there, but it kind of makes, because this thing kind of puts you in the back seat when it's in control. So I guess when August started noticing things, it was already too late. Maybe he was thinking like, oh, there's stress. He didn't think much of it, but then it's like, it's a key sign. It kind of almost for a second, like, in certain regards, it kind of reminds me of the virus from Sweet Tooth in that regard. Because it almost has that, like, pinky thing a little bit. It's not the same. It's more so like your entire hand. But especially later on, it reminded me of the Sweet Tooth virus. But basically having to be stuck inside the Roman agency, shutting down the elevators, kind of locking themselves in there, staying forever, however long it takes to draw this thing out. Because it was interesting when Phil was doing some research on it and everything, and obviously like the kitsune came up, which I'm like, oh, very befitting, because I guess like, I mean, that's the thing of like, there's similar things in every culture, or at very least like there's things in each culture, I guess, that fit what a roadie is. And it's so interesting to know, like, a kitsune, maybe he was just running through things that I don't know. Because how do you go from kitsune to wendigo? Which I'm like, hey, those are the things I have the most experience. The first thing he brought up was a leche. I'm like, not that familiar with. But a kitsune, I'm familiar with because, like, obviously it's like, that's a big thing in, like, Japanese mythology. It's just like, foxes personify, like, mischief and being tricksters. Obviously you think of, like, the Nine Tails from Naruto. I think of, God, what was her name? Was it Kimiko? I'm blanking on her name from, what was her name? It's been a while, from Teen Wolf, because she was a kitsune. So it was something of that vein in nature. So, like, oh, when I thought that, and obviously I think of Wendigo, I think, spoilers, Until Dawn, Supernatural, the TV show, where, like, Wendigos do the whole, like, cannibalism thing. So, like I said, just how you go from, like, kitsune to that, I thought was interesting. So, I guess, once again, it might just be like the different mythologies, referencing the same thing, but just it being tweaked. I mean, I just thought that was so fascinating. But obviously there's the complicated thing of them all kind of being on top of each other, plus having a trickster like being amongst them. So obviously you have Susan kind of focusing on her reward because it means a lot to her, because despite all the crappy stuff associated with like her past job and everything, it's like, right, it's still proof of like the hard work she's put in. And I even love that whole thing of like, oh, I had that nightmare when you know you're close to selling like this specific house, and then Justin Timberlake shows up, but before he will sign, he starts singing I'm loving it or something like that, and then like Phil and Luke are looking at her like, what? She's like, oh, come on, like neither one of you've ever had that dream. I wish one of them would have been like, no, never, not once. And once again, it just shows like how in the like Susan is. The fact is that she's so in this selling home thing that like she's dreaming about it. Like I think that just shows you like it is her bread and butter, that this is kind of her passion and everything. I also love that when Zoe like orders Chinese food, it's like, right, it's downstairs. Well, can we get the security guard to like bring it up here? It's like, oh, you mean the one that's got a thing for Susan? Like, go ahead, Susan, just do the voice. He's like, hey, you, and you're like, yes, all right, we're in there, we're getting our food. So I like that. But there was like obviously a lot of smaller things kind of brought up, like when August starts talking mad shit towards Zoe, and I immediately thought that was a thing in Control, but I guess the argument is like it speaks what you're already feeling. So whatever you're feeling, it just applies it in that case. Or maybe that really was him talking in that moment, and then the moment she left, that's when it shifted over. Like, oh, it's my turn. It just chose the point where it kind of pushed people away, because he was calling her like she's strong, but he was saying like she's needy and kind of pathetic. And so she left the room. I was like, oh, doing the one thing you're not supposed to do, leave each other's sight. And then his arms start stretching. I'm like, ugh, that's gross. But then Zoe's got to deal with the fact that she's getting broken up with over the phone, which that sucks. It's like, and the silver lining, at least it's not through text. Not like a phone call makes it any better. But the moment like she gets like grabbed, most likely by August, but he snaps back out of it, and the moment he comes out, he's like, I blacked out. I have no idea what went wrong. But his assumption was because it destroyed the blades to that device, it's like, right, this must have something to do with stopping it. They go looking for Zoe for a while, but the moment Zoe does pop back up, it's like, wait, okay, so she's here. So the thing was looking at houses, but I wasn't paying as close attention. I'm like, what house is this thing looking at? Which obviously it's like, it's not bad. It's bad enough they've got to deal with the roadie. Obviously, Luke calls Megan to get like a blender piece, the one that got destroyed by the creature. Because for August, I think it's his pride as the one who makes the devices. That it's like, right, they've crossed paths with the roadie before, and this was the time, like, right, we came out victorious, and August was so sure of it. But I think it was his pride in being like, we have to stop this thing now. Like, I have to get a replacement for that blade piece, because that's most likely the means necessary to defeat this thing. Like, why else would it destroy it? But I think in the long run, that was just it was a red herring, that he'd be so focused on thinking like, right, because you have no idea what you were doing when this thing was controlling you, so it leaves you enough breadcrumbs to lead you down the wrong direction. That's probably why I was staring at the blade of like, all right, if I do something to this, once he'll snap back, knowing August, because I'm curious, like the moment it hijacks you, does it kind of get to know your personality? Because once again, it plays into the trickster angle. Like, does it absorb enough knowledge and know like, oh, this will be enough to send you down a spiral, because you'll see this and you'll automatically assume that this is the means. Like, we never really get to the nitty gritties of like, but you like, it has to like, it speaks through you, so it has to know on some level what you know to say the right things and just kind of push you in the right direction. Because even partway through that conversation, August did say like he had the demonic voice. So I'm like, I think it is a thing of it just pushes you to say stuff that you're already feeling. So even though it's not you, those feelings and those words come from somewhere. But like I said, while they're dealing with this, they have to deal with like that reporter Maria, who's been wanting to talk to Luke about a lot of stuff, and he's kind of keep putting her off, because she ultimately ends up connecting what happened to the Travis home and the repeat of almost a similar tragedy with the house that they were dealing with this episode, where it's like, right, the little boys injured their parents. It didn't kill them. It didn't turn out like the Travis house, but it was borderlining that way. Because even then, it was also the thing of like Susan was looking through the pictures and she's like, what do they mean? Like, it's like maybe that's just the kids drawing stuff like that, like swirls and chaos, but maybe we'll find out later on that there is something more to that, because this case is going to have to be re-examined, but we'll get to that soon enough. But now, these two particular tragedies are being associated with the Roman agency, so it's like, we're screwed. No one's going to want us to be selling them houses or use us to sell their houses or buy housing. Like, no one's going to want to trust us if we're associated with like all these crimes, which is so interesting considering like they've helped bail other people out with their respective circumstances. Rita last episode, and that old colleague of Luke's, the episode before that, or one before that, whichever one it was. So I'm like, it's bad press. You know, it's that situation of all publicity is not all good publicity in this particular case, you know? I did think it was interesting, like, we had that, I think it was a dream sequence, because, like, interestingly enough, or not unless that's supposed to be, like, the future or something like that, because that scene was so out of place, so I don't think Luke was waking up, but maybe he was, because, like, Megan comes knocking on the door, and I guess in that moment, Luke wakes up being like, wait, what? Megan, no, you're not supposed to be here, how'd you get up here? It's like, the security guard has a key. He has a key? Yeah. The security guard to this building has a key. Like, it makes sense. So Megan kind of gets stuck there as they're trying to figure this whole situation out. Then there's a conversation between Megan and Luke. That Megan, because she is the science person she is, she can't really believe in all of this despite everything. Even despite her experiences. Even the last episode, you know, but it's like she still rationalizes it. Like, this world kind of like that Luke's a part of doesn't make sense to him. And obviously he opens up a little bit more about the Travis house. That, you know, obviously for him, he's always been able to talk to like ghosts and stuff like that. It's always been a part of his life. He's always been able to see them and even listen to. He can always talk to them and they'll always talk back if he listens hard enough. And because of his circumstances, he can pass that on to, like, he can bring other people into that. So other people can see and talk to them as well. I guess that's kind of like the one with the little boy in adoption, like the episode before last. I guess that's kind of why everyone was able to see that little ghost boy, was because like Luke has like almost an area of effect when it comes to his ability. Obviously, there's some just straight up that can manifest. Like, I think the rules for ghosts obviously change depending on the ghost, because there's some we've seen who are just like, Luke doesn't need to be around for them to manifest. Like, if the manifestation is strong enough, they'll just pop up on their own. I mean, that's even the whole thing about like why a roadie exists. Like, they feed off of the energy from like a ghost occupying a place for so long. Like, that house owner, like, that house was owned by like a person who had died like 20 years prior and didn't know it, so that energy was built up, and that's what attracts a roadie. And a roadie will say that like a place that's already bad, a roadie will make it even worse, essentially. So I did like that interesting conversation between August and Zoe, where he was talking, like, she's like, right, that needy comment, and she's like, no, I'm not needy. It's like, he's like, well, at the very least, like, all your significant others, they fit a type. And she's like, I don't have a type. Like, Jeffrey wasn't like AJ, who wasn't like Chris, or that might have been switched, but regardless, it's like Jeffrey ended up being a comedian, but wasn't funny on purpose. Forgot what Chris did. Like, it's just the fact that she points out, like, all her significant others don't have, like, careers and stuff like that. But I thought it was interesting where August was saying, like, yeah, he said it in a very kind of mean way, but what he meant at the end of the day was, you don't basically need to be with people that you kind of have to fix. You deserve somebody wonderful, like, and there are plenty of wonderful people out there that don't come, like something needing to be assembled. They're perfectly, they're not just the way they are, in like when something shows up for you to put together inside of a box. I'm butchering what he said. Obviously, kind of like Roman said the other episode. It's like, oh, like, you'll say it more brilliantly and it'll come off elegant. And it's like, you know, it's the way you say things. So that was kind of a nice bonding moment between them. But we find out quickly that the person that's possessed is Susan, who it turns out the house she took an interest in is Megan's, and it makes sense considering that house has a portal. Once again, I'm assuming that's also why Luke's mom is there too. Like, there's something special about that place. Yeah, the door is sealed, but I'm thinking like that's going to be a massive attraction for a lot, especially like a roadie. Like, that place has so much energy that it's like it would be the most appealing place. Because I guess it was looking, when it was at Zoe, it was looking through their records of places that are still kind of still consumed with that energy, even when things have kind of been settled. Maybe it's planning to go there and kind of cause some more ruckus of like restarting, like getting that spiritual energy kind of rolling again. Or maybe, like I said, it's still there in abundance and it's just there to consume it and feed off of it and just once again make it kind of build out more and cause more trouble like roadies do. So, but regardless, as Susan, it's calling out Megan, saying like, "Oh, you're so smart and lucky and stuff like that. You went from Brock to Luke." But then, like Phil was saying, like the thing can't tell how it feels, so it's like, so it can't lie about how it feels. So it's like, right, are you guys possessed? And they both go, no. Are you two possessed? No. But then it attacks Megan, but then like goes to Luke. But in that time, August uses a device and it's like, yep. And Phil checks and it's like, all right, we're all clear. 5 clear spaces. I'm like, but there's 6 people in this room. Like, shouldn't that have been a key sign? But I guess it's like, because they're the ones in the office all the time, so they're set up like it maybe has a monitoring thing to monitor them. Plus, the last person that was possessed was Luke, so I guess you never thought that it'd have time to go to Megan in that time frame. Skipping around a little bit. But obviously, Susan has her awards show, but it's like, right, I can't. If you guys don't want to be there, I totally understand. Maybe you guys don't want to be around me. So sadly, she has to go to the awards show by herself. And I'll be having to deal with Rita and her like, oh, is that her mom? Like, who brings her mother? And it's like, well, Leo brought his mom to the Oscars. Yeah, but that was Leo. He's king of the world. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, Rita, you suck. And then we meet the biggest douchebag of all. It's like, finally, we are able to associate a face with the douchebaggery that was Bob. And he's like, oh yeah, like I was a mentor to her, so she'll listen to me. And I love that the moment like Constance, her mom, it's like, Mom, this is Bob Livingston. She's almost like, you? Like she, like, oh, it just like you could see like almost like her blood boiling. Like, you have the audacity to come over here and talk to my daughter after everything. So, but the fact is that he's like, right, how are you? I'm here for you as a friend, like, blah, blah, blah. And he wants her to keep her speech short. It's like, right, with everything you're going on with those weirdos, those misfits at the Roman agency, she's like, those are my friends. Like, if they were your real friends, why are they not here? He's like, I'm here to actually try to be a friend. And it's like, also he's like, oh, but also congratulations. But like, don't embarrass yourself and stuff like that. It's like, could you be more of a dick? Even saying like, you getting fired. They're like, that was a stipulation for my wife. And it's like, yeah, happened to see her here with like a coat made from Dalmatian. So, nice Cruella reference. But also, because at first I was about to say like, hey, could it really be? I was like, no, she's making a Cruella reference. But, like I said, no one was there, but then like at the last second, the crew shows up. Megan's there, Anthony's there with them as well. So, and I love like Zoe comes by, takes a bottle, and it's just kind of like a hey. And the moment Susan gets up there, accepting her award, having her friends by her side, a place that she ends up talking about it, where it's like, some of you might believe in me, and that's perfectly fine. And she appreciates that. And then she talks about the people who believe in the odd things. And you've opened up my mind. She's like, that's never a bad thing. Because for so long, like, she was very stubborn and stuck in her own ways. And her worldview has kind of changed because of her new weird friends and stuff like that. So she appreciates them. They're being here to support her and everything, too. Once again, I guess Luke thought it was just like her hand shaking just because like she was nervous or jittery, so he didn't think much of it, because August didn't give them the sign of like, oh yeah, that's a key sign of like, yeah, this whole roadie thing. But so that was awesome. Plus, she made sure to start a fire, a little tiny fire at Bob's table, which I'm like, man, that pyrokinesis, dude, that's crazy. Don't ever let that slip your mind that Susan's got that. I mean, the giant fireball she used a couple episodes ago should be a good enough reminder, but still, I let it slip my mind from time to time, regardless of that, you know? So, I am curious, what was it that Phil noticed? Because he was like, at the end of it, he was like, there's just something's off. I feel like I missed something. What that was, I don't know. But obviously everyone's saying their goodbyes and obviously their congratulations to her. But then Roman and Megan's like, oh, let's go back to my place. He's like, oh, but I thought we kind of agreed. He's like, whoa, you ordered a Uber or something? Like, well, Megan. And he, at the end of it all, I don't think he noticed that she was possessed. I don't think he figured out. He knew something was weird and wrong there. He's like, did I do something wrong? I don't know. Still, even at the end, I don't think he realized it. So I have not seen the preview. I don't want to know in case you're coming across this. But like I said, having not seen the preview and not wanting it spoiled for me, I am curious, is the next episode going to be a continuation in that regard? Or is it just going to be like, oh, it's going to be another case and that Megan stuff is going to be happening in the background? Or at the very least, we won't see Megan and Luke is going to try and get in contact with her. Like maybe it's a side thing of the episode. Maybe it's like part of the episode and not the full story of the episode. Or maybe the entire episode is dedicated, like, yeah, something's up with Megan because maybe Phil figured out, like, right, something. Once again, like, why August's device didn't work in the first place, why it didn't work in the second place, because it was never going to work, because all he did was like speed it up to try and compensate, like, oh, this time I'm gonna make it more powerful so that it does the job that it was supposed to do. Because once again, I think it's also because coming from the place of, this is my job, this is what I do, and if I fail at it, like, that's when tragedy can strike. So this is my corner of like what I bring to the Roman agency, and if I fail at that, then, you know, maybe he has a worse opinion of himself, type of thing. Like, this is my job, this is what I do, and if I'm failing at it, like, so many people could end up dying because of it. Maybe it's also he's driven by the thought of, like, right, not wanting another Travis House situation to happen again, you know? But I'm really interested to see how this all plays out, how they handle this going forward, explaining, like, how the roadie ended up getting to Megan. Like I said, I'm sure, like, the circumstances of our house are what drew it, but I'd rather kind of get full clarification for that. And also, like, how do they actually get rid of this thing? It's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.